listening to the HWP Report, bringing you news and information about issues pertaining to health, wellness, and performance, with your host, Dr. Faiz Kirsten.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this podcast of the Health Wellness Performance Institute. The Institute merges root cause medicine with empowerment programs, thereby helping people to prevent and reverse chronic illness and to optimize their health and wellness. Now, our 3-month program focuses largely on assisting patients who have been experiencing ongoing struggles with cancer, autoimmune diseases, and neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's disease and dementia, amongst others. We do, however, also assist patients with other chronic diseases such as diabetes and hypertension, for example, and who are interested in reversing these conditions. And the Institute also offers various health and wellness products and educational courses. So visit us at the link below to learn more about the Health Wellness Performance Institute. Okay, so welcome again, everybody, to part 2 of the episode 2 of this podcast on neurodegenerative disease, what it is, and some natural treatments that can be used for it. So I'm going to start off by explaining what the lymphatic system is now. This is really about brain detox. Detoxing the brain is actually a critical process that has to occur on a daily basis, and it really occurs through the lymphatic system. Now, in 2012, scientists actually made a remarkable discovery. They found that the brain has its own unique waste removal system, and they call it, like I just said, the lymphatic system. Now, similar to the lymphatic system, this system flushes out cellular waste and toxic byproducts that would do damage if these byproducts and toxic waste byproducts really were allowed to build up in the brain. And the system is managed by the brain's glial cells, and I'll explain what those. I think I did explain it in the last episode, or part 1 of this of episode 2. So the scientists actually described the lymphatic system in the following way. I'll just read out what they actually said. They said, the highly organized system acts like a series of pipes that piggyback on the brain's blood vessels, sort of a shadow plumbing system that seems to serve much the same function in the brain as the lymph system does in the body, the rest of the body. And basically that is to drain away waste products. This work shows, this is the work they're talking about that they've done in this area, this work shows that the brain is cleansing itself in a more organized way and on a much larger scale than has been realized previously. They say the system circulates CSF, which is cerebrospinal fluid, to every corner of the brain efficiently under pressure through bulk flow or convection, and pushes large volumes of CSF through the brain each day to carry waste away more forcefully. Now, the lymphatic system actually functions almost exclusively during sleep, because cleansing is an energy-intense activity, so it must be performed during the brain's downtime, basically when one is asleep. So during sleep, what happens is the neurons actually shrink about 60%, okay? And then the channels between them fill up with fluid as the intercellular waste, is flushed out by the lymphatic pumping system. And because the brain detoxification process is so energy intense, it depends on effective mitochondrial function. So you need a lot of energy, and energy is produced in the mitochondria. So it's not surprising then, that together with vascular abnormalities, mitochondrial abnormalities are also commonly found in patients with Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so the mitochondria don't function, you basically, your cells, your neurons will actually die off. You become demented. One of the neurodegenerative diseases is dementia, as we mentioned in part 1. Okay, so quality sleep then is non-negotiable for optimal brain health, okay, and basically for optimal health overall. In fact, the science is showing that sleep is critical for your brain cells, okay, and basically what what do they need to do, your brain cells. So they need to obviously detoxify your metabolic waste. They need to improve neurotransmitter receptor sensitivity. They need to reset the balance of neurotransmitters, rebuild new neural connections, neuronal connections, and obviously get rid of dysfunctional or neuronal cells that are not working properly anymore. And in order for them to do all these things, sleep is critical. All right. So there are three important must-dos to optimize your brain health. Okay, so the first one is to adopt a detox diet and lifestyle, very critical. Secondly, if your gut is leaky, you must heal it. Okay, because a leaky gut will impact on the brain, and you get leaky brain. And if your brain is leaky, then you must also heal that. A very important point here is that 25% of our detox capabilities is actually managed by the gut microbiome, and we spoke about the microbiome in part 1. So obviously people want to know now, do I have leaky gut? Do I have leaky brain? How do I test for leaky brain? Okay, so there's various tests that can be done to see if you have a leaky brain. Now, I'm not going to explain all of these tests. I'll mention them, but the first one I'll explain briefly. The first test you can do is something called the GABA test. GABA is G-A-B-A. It stands for gamma aminobutyric acid. This is really like a calming neurotransmitter in the brain, but you can take it in a supplement form, although the truth of the matter is that the GABA molecule is too large to actually pass through a healthy blood-brain barrier. So if your blood-brain barrier is intact, and we spoke about the blood-brain barrier in the last, in part 1, if it's intact, it doesn't allow certain molecules and substances through and allows others through. So if it's intact, it won't allow the GABA molecule to pass through, okay? GABA is produced naturally in your brain. But if you take it as a supplement, it won't go through your blood-brain barrier unless your blood-brain barrier is breached, okay? So if there's a breach of the blood-brain barrier, which is BBBB, 4 Bs, okay? BBB is blood-brain barrier, and breach of the blood-brain barrier is 4 Bs, okay? BBBB. If your blood-brain barrier is breached, then the GABA molecule will actually pass through, and then you will start to feel drowsy or sleepy a few hours after taking about 1 gram of GABA. So if you start to feel drowsy after taking 1 gram of GABA, it means that the GABA molecule has gone through the blood-brain barrier, which it shouldn't do if it was intact, and that means that you have a leaky brain, okay? There are other tests that you can do, like I mentioned. You can measure blood-brain barrier proteins. You can look at antibodies to zonulin and occludin, and they're elevated, the elevated levels indicate both leaky gut and leaky brain. There's another test you can do called microRNA 155. I won't explain that. Homocysteine levels are very important to check for if you have a leaky brain. Blood sugar levels, and look at your microbiome. If you have dysbiosis, an imbalance between the good and the bad bacteria, then you most likely have a leaky brain also if you have dysbiosis. So obviously the question then arises, if you have leaky brain, how do you fix it? So there's many things that you can do to fix a leaky brain. Obviously the main thing is to avoid or eliminate anything that causes leaky brain. Okay, and we mentioned all those causes in part 1, right? One of them is chronic psychological stress, okay? And all the stresses really, chemical stresses, physical stresses, psychological stresses, can make you vulnerable to leaky brain. Obviously, if you have leaky gut, you must heal your leaky gut. Coffee has been found, in moderation of course, it actually improves gut health. So it actually has a positive effect on the gut microbiome. And also the smooth muscle of the intestine, so it also helps to improve or prevent leaky gut, and in that way prevents leaky brain. Also, you must eat anti-inflammatory, antioxidant foods, neuroprotective foods such as broccoli, blueberries, dark chocolate, curcumin, berberine, and many other foods are anti-inflammatory. Also take vitamins, supplements such as omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B12, and B vitamins, vitamin D3, magnesium, acetylcholine, many supplements that can be taken, that should be taken. Good quality sleep, like we mentioned, this is very crucial. And if you're not sleeping well, then obviously you need to follow the steps of good sleep hygiene. Take melatonin if necessary, that should help you sleep. Lower your homocysteine levels, okay? Progesterone also helps. Certain herbs such as ginseng, selenium, iodine, and it also increase the blood-brain or the brain-blood flow. So if you increase your blood flow to your brain, that will also help the brain to function better and heal a leaky brain. We mentioned some ways to increase brain blood flow last time, and we'll talk about a few more later on. Now I want to talk about something called neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. Okay, so neurogenesis is actually the ability of the adult brain to grow new neurons and glial cells. Okay, we mentioned the glial cells last part one. These are supporting cells. They support the neurons. They're almost like nursing cells. They look after them, they nourish them, and so forth. And that's neurogenesis, so the ability of the brain to grow new neurons and glial cells. Now, neuroplasticity actually refers to the ability of the brain to rewire itself. Okay, so in response to learning a new skill, changes in environment, often injury, and so forth. So new neural pathways are created in response to each individual's need. So neuroplasticity actually optimizes brain efficiency and improves the chance of the brain surviving, okay? The brain is actually a very resilient organ and very pliable. So this plasticity refers to the pliability of the brain. So when you're able to form new brain cells, new connections, new learning, that gives you new possibilities in life, okay? So neuroplasticity is actually present throughout life, okay? So the ability of the brain to form new brain cell, and not to form new brain connections between the brain cells. So that's rewiring of the brain, and dewiring is to get rid of old connections that are not sort of functional anymore, not needed anymore. So neuroplasticity is actually about rewiring and dewiring the brain, and it actually involves many processes. Okay, so in a nutshell, it basically involves the creation of new neural connections and synaptic pruning, which is getting rid of old connections that are no longer necessary. So I think sometimes they refer to it as neuroblastic activity and neuroclastic activity. And neuroblastic activity is formation of new connections, and neuroclastic would be the breaking up of old, or getting rid of old connections. Okay. And of course, neuroplasticity plays a role in many things, from learning a new language to healing after a stroke, for example, and even in habitual emotional states. Like, for example, depressed people are literally wired, they have this wired for feeling sad and hopeless. But of course, the good news is that the laws of neuroplasticity make it possible for this wiring to change. So with the proper mindset and intention, together with the proper nourishment and stimulation, the brain can actually heal, grow, and adapt at any stage of life. It doesn't matter what age you are, your brain actually has this neuroplastic ability, okay, and even neurogenesis ability to form new brain cells. So there's been studies done on stimulating neurogenesis in Parkinson's disease. Now, we know Parkinson's disease is actually a common neurodegenerative condition, and it's actually increasing throughout the world, actually. Not surprising, given the kind of toxic world that we're living in, which we mentioned last episode, or the last part of this episode. So one must remember that although there are ongoing studies focusing on stimulating neurogenesis in Parkinson's disease, okay, or the development of one drug for a neurodegenerative disease, it's important to remember that the treatment approach to all chronic diseases, okay, is, including neurodegenerative disease, has to be an holistic approach. Okay, you cannot just try and develop one drug for this disease. So you have Parkinson's disease, and you develop one drug to try and treat this condition. okay? Or you just treat it sort of in a monomodal way. No chronic disease actually should be treated this way, all right? Every person is a holistic person, and when they have an illness, that illness needs to be treated holistically. So you got to address all four levels of their beings, which is their psychological aspect, their biological aspect, their social aspect, and the spiritual aspect of the human being. So all four. So even if it's Parkinson's disease or any neurodegenerative disease or any chronic disease, the approach has to be holistic, and that is the approach that I take. When I see my patients, um, and you need a lot of time also when it comes to neurodegenerative disease. So that is why we offer patients who've been struggling with these diseases oftentimes for many, many years, despite being through the system, the healthcare system, private and public, seeing specialists for many, many years, they actually end up being worse or not improving, oftentimes actually become much worse than what they initially were at the outset. Because in most cases, these patients are not treated holistically. And to treat a patient holistically, you need time. You've got to work with the patient over time. So this is why we offer a 3-month program, so that we can deal with all the aspects of the patient's situation. And in that way, we get results. All right. So there has been a study done on adult neurogenesis and Parkinson's disease. I'm just going to read the first part of the abstract of the study. It says Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder characterized by a progressive neuronal loss affecting preferentially the dopaminergic neurons of the nigrostriatal projection. Okay, there's a lot of technical terms in this abstract, so maybe I'll just put the abstract up and then you can read it for yourself. Okay. I'll go on to, there's another in the Journal of Clinical Investigation, which was published by the American Society for Clinical Investigation. The abstract of this study says that there have been many attempts at slowing down or even reversing the neurodegenerative process of Parkinson's disease. To date, there are no treatments of proven value in this regard. Now, it says one underexplored route to slow the neurodegenerative process is the use of agents that may stimulate neurogenesis in the subventricular zone. Also, more technical terms here, unfortunately. But I'll read the rest of this abstract because it's not very long. It says in animal models of Parkinson's disease, PDGFBB has been shown to restore or protect against dopaminergic deficits caused by neurotoxins via increased neurogenesis in the subventricular zone. Previous work suggests that these new cells are not themselves dopaminergic, but have trophic effects on residual dopaminergic cells in the substantia nigra. In this issue of the JCI, Paul and others evaluate this agent in individuals with Parkinson's disease and show that ICV, which means intracerebroventricular administration of PDGFBB, which is the agent that was tested, they found that it is safe and well tolerated. And it says that this study lays the foundation for formal dose-finding studies and clinical trials to assess the efficacy of this agent as a potential neuroprotective treatment for Parkinson's disease. So the point is that there are studies that are being done which are showing promise in reversing, Parkinson's disease, because you get degeneration of neurons which produce dopamine in the substantia nigra, and it looks like you can reverse this, which there are cases that have been reversed, that people have Parkinson's and they have achieved reversal of their condition, which of course that is not the belief of most conventional doctors, including especially neurologists who treat patients with these diseases all of the time. They don't really believe that you can reverse Parkinson's or the other neurodegenerative diseases, but the facts of the matter indicate otherwise. Okay, so neurogenesis can then be increased with specific foods and nutrients. cutting edge therapies and lifestyle habits, and advanced supplements and herbs, like we just mentioned. So, in fact, I'm going to quote Dr. Sandrine Tourette, a neuroscientist at King's College in London. She said, "We have enough evidence to say that neurogenesis is a target of choice if we want to improve memory formation or mood, or even prevent the decline associated with aging or associated with stress. The next question is, can we control neurogenesis?" And then she answers the question. She says the answer is yes. So the goal is to produce then new neurons in order to repair your brain damage, any brain damage, or to enhance our capacity to learn and improve our quality of life. The production of new neurons or neurogenesis obviously is non-negotiable. That needs to be achieved. So then how do we prevent neurodegenerative disease, and how do we reverse neurodegenerative disease? Obviously, the first thing is to avoid or eliminate the causes. I know that is really what root cause medicine is all about. Is the first thing you need to do is find the cause. Okay, so that's what I do. I look at what is causing this person's condition, and oftentimes there's many causes, and we mentioned many of these causes in part one. So if you can find the causes and then eliminate them or avoid them, that's the best thing to do, because oftentimes if you do that, your body starts to heal itself. It's no longer exposed to the toxic stressor that's causing the condition. But this is easier said than done because it may be very costly to eliminate the cause or to avoid it if you found it, or it may be difficult or even impossible, to avoid the cause. In fact, we're living today, it almost seems impossible to avoid one of the main causes that's causing neurodegeneration today is, in fact, radiation, electromagnetic radiation. So we're actually living in a sea of radiation, okay, digital radiation. And in fact, electromagnetic radiation is basically everywhere, okay? And in fact, today they're adding 5G to the mix of the sea of radiation. And I'm sure you are all familiar with what's happening, in various parts of the world, especially in Wuhan, China. I mentioned it in the last part one, that in fact it seems a combination of 5G with electrosmog, or pollution rather, in that area is really responsible for a large number of deaths there, and now in also other parts of the world. Although they say it's a coronavirus, I'm not going to go into that specifically. I think I may have mentioned it in part one. But there's lots of information regarding this relationship between 5G and coronavirus and so forth. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to avoid the causes of chronic diseases today, and especially the fact that electromagnetic radiation is everywhere. Okay, we're using our cell phone towers are everywhere, Wi-Fi is everywhere. Now 5G is going to be everywhere soon, and obviously the biological effects of 5G are so catastrophic. If you look at the studies, which show what impact these millimeter waves have on our biology, that it may be an apocalypse. It may just kill off millions and it's going to be raining down from satellites. Because thousands of satellites are up there now, and it looks like they're going to be deploying 5G from satellites, which seems to be happening already anyway. But also towers, these 5G cell towers. So obviously now what I'm saying is that the deployment of 5G will be catastrophic for humanity. If you look at the studies, I can't see anything. I can't use another term. It only looks. I don't know how it can be good for anybody to be exposed to such devastating, radiation. It's just, I don't know. In fact, I think Professor Martin Paul said, the deployment of 5G is the stupidest thing that humanity, or is the most stupid idea ever in the history of humanity, or something to that effect. What he was trying to say is, or what he was saying is that it's a really stupid idea to employ or to deploy 5G, on humanity. So it's basically it's a weapon, it's a weapon that's being deployed. It's probably a stupid idea if you're thinking rationally, like Professor Paul is, and every other rational thinking human being is thinking. But I think if you have diabolical ideas and diabolical intentions, and your whole goal is to eliminate human beings, then maybe it's not such a stupid idea. So it depends on whose perspective we're talking about, I would imagine. Anyway, if you want to read a good article on the dangers of 5G, it's by Makia Freeman. You go to the Freedom Articles website. So if you type in the Freedom Articles, and the title of this article is 5G Danger, 13 Reasons New Millimeter Wave Tech Will Be a Catastrophe for Humanity. So you can go to Makia Freeman's website called the Freedom Articles. If you type in this title, like I said, I'll read it again: 5G Danger, 13 Reasons New Millimeter Wave Tech Will Be a Catastrophe for Humanity. And he outlines, the reasons why, deploying 5G is a really bad idea if you don't want humans dying off, in their thousands and hundreds of thousands and probably millions, and quickly too. Anyway, but there still is hope, there is light in this time of darkness, I would imagine. People are actually fighting back. It's the dominoes are starting to fall. People are, in fact, maybe if Claire Edwards, she worked for the she's a BA Honors, MA, worked for the United Nations as editor and trainer in intercultural writing from 1999 to 2017. And Claire Edwards, she warned the Secretary General about the dangers of 5G during a meeting with the United Nations staff in May 2018. And she actually called for a halt to its rollout at United Nations duty stations. And she also part-authored and designed and administered the 30-language versions and edited the entirety of the international appeal to stop 5G on Earth and in space. You can go to this website, www.5gspaceappeal.org. Okay? And then you'll see, what she's done there. And she vigorously campaigned to promote, this appeal, international appeal to stop 5G. Throughout last year, she went on a vigorous campaign to promote this international appeal to stop 5G on Earth and in space. Okay, so although we are far from victory, I think there is still much to be hopeful for, hopeful about, as millions around the world deepen their involvement, and take a stand for our shared future. So there are countries that are banning 5G, but there are other countries that are enthusiastically implementing it. I don't know. I suppose you've got to follow the money, who benefits. All right. To know why these countries are basically implementing it with such enthusiasm. So basically what is required then is a global united effort against these forces that are of diabolical intention. Okay, so I've come to the end of part 2 of this podcast, and then we'll pick up the last part 3, next time. So thanks again for listening, and appreciate it. All the best.